What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the MCU Reviewed here on the Geekiverse channel. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited to talk about the movie that we have today. It's like a frickin' Guardians Inferno, only I didn't say frickin'. I'm Josiah Leroy. With me today, my right-hand man, Mr. Baba Yaga, John Fick. You ready to talk some Guardians of the Galaxy?
I am. I'm so excited. This is one of three MCU movies I physically own. If that's gonna tell you a little bit about how I feel about it, but I'm also very excited. There we go. Very excited to have Mr. Reid back on the show, man. This is what I've been excited for.
Our long lost friend here. Look at this guy. It's been so long since we've had him on the show. It feels so good, even though we talk about him as if he's on the show every single week. Del, oh my gosh, what's been happening? We missed you.
Oh, I missed you guys too. I'm so happy to be back and to talk some Marvel goodness with you guys.
We have to catch you up or have a little catch up discussion in just a moment. But also one of our hosts here, JT. JT, we had a wonderful experience last night. We had a Geekiverse outing. Went to Thin Man Brewing right in Buffalo. We had a good time, didn't we?
Oh, I loved it. Yeah, I definitely had a good time, and I loved Volume 2 even more. I watched it last week because we thought we were going to do a doubleheader to get two movies in, but I watched it again today, and it didn't even feel like I watched it last week. It's so good. It's not to go too deep into it, but I just, man, good. So good.
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to have a lot to say. So we are talking about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 here on this episode of the MCU Reviewed, sponsored by Fantastic, a division of 26 Shirts. Del Reid, co-founder of 26 Shirts, is with us today. Del, I think we should probably start with the catching up on the rankings. So where we've ranked so far, we had Doctor Strange last week. So we talked All Sorcerer Supreme, had a good time with that. And with our rankings as they stand now, anything stand out to you? Tell us what we got wrong. Tell us what you were screaming as you were listening to the podcast. We want to hear it all.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's not terrible what you guys have here. Having Doctor Strange below Iron Man 3 is just
perfect.
I don't know about that. I think I'd go, what's the opposite of perfect? Imperfect. It's very imperfect. First Avenger, I think I fought for this a while ago when we did that show, or maybe I just complained about it because I wasn't on all the early shows.
You were on that show. You definitely fought for it.
Oh, it's so good. It's 11 out of 14. I mean, shoot, even Incredible Hulk is better than Dark World. I fought that battle, lost real quickly when we recorded that one. But it's also not a hill to die on. They're two different. I mean, like you're fighting for the lowest tier of the MCU catalog. It's like, fine, I'll let you have it, But yeah, I think it's actually not too bad aside from the fact that you've got Winter Soldier below Age of Ultron. I mean, there's a whole faction of MCU fanhood that to this day still thinks Winter Soldier is the best MCU movie made to date. I'm not sure that I'm on that train, but I'm definitely not on the number 5 out of 14 so far train. Winter Soldier just changed the game for superhero movies. It showed that you could make a movie about a comic book character or whatever and make it actually like intrigue and not spy, but I guess a little bit of that. Like it was just such a
espionage kind of.
Espionage, that's the word. Thank you. It's a complete espionage with a little bit of superhero thrown in. It's so great. I really think that it kind of revolutionized, comic book movies, in that time window that it had. So overall, not terrible. Aside from the fact that Josiah, I love you, man. Iron Man 3, number 7 out of 14 so far is just way too high. I would put it maybe. Oh, yeah. I'd probably put it above Iron Man 2. To be fair, I mean, I know there's a whole faction, and I know Rashawn thinks it should be number 15 out of 14, but I would probably put it there below Doctor Strange, but not too bad. There's an argument for all of this where we're at. Guardians number 2, very respectable. I mean, the original Guardians of the Galaxy being ranked number 2, just to confuse the listeners and start talking about Guardians 2. That can be that I'm on board with that. It's not so bad. It's not so bad. I wish that
egregious, like nothing that like makes you super mad. Like, I mean, Rashawn, I swear, like I'm like, come a little bit closer. I'm gonna smack you for your Iron Man comments. We talk about it all the time. We did talk about it all the time when we were in the thick of that, and it was always so funny.
And that's why
but,
Rashawn
like,
is gone.
Iron Man 3 came up, I think, every show for a while there. Like every show Rashawn's like, and then also Iron Man 3. And then he would just like drop it. But it's not so bad what we got here. It's not so bad. You catch me on the right day, I'm telling you, Ant-Man is number 3 or something, but like today's not that day.
We had that discussion. So we're a little bit divisive when we got to Captain America Civil War. Not really divisive, but Guardians of the Galaxy surrendered that number 1 spot to Civil War. Yeah, do you think that's accurate? I'm sorry if you already said that.
It's really tough for me to honestly, because Civil War is kind of like Avengers 2.5, and it does such a great job of bringing all these different characters in, and it has so many themes that you never think about when you're watching a superhero movie. At least me growing up, I never thought about like, how is the government just okay with these guys with superpowers with no checks or balances in anything they're doing? So I think it really brings a whole layer. Like, they've done such a good job with the MCU in terms of taking these really crazy concepts, these like fictional concepts, and saying, how would this work in the real world? I think they've done a really good job. But I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy, and I'll say this later on with Volume 2, James Gunn does such an amazing job of disarming you with comedy, and then right as you're like laughing or like, just coming down from that, he'll punch you in the gut with something so heavy that you and then he doesn't even often give you enough time to really even digest this real feeling you have, whether it's about who your parents are or who your family is or why you even exist. And then he'll just hit you with another joke, so you never have time to even like really relish in that. And then at the end of the movie, he comes in and he really lets you wallow in it, and it's such great movie making. So 1, 2, I think that they're both amazing, and they're both so well made, and they cover so much of either the human experience or the comic book fan who wants to believe this could be kind of real experience. So, I mean, I don't have an argument either way.
All right, that's fair. I'm totally fine with it being where it is, but my vote would have kept Guardians 1 and then Civil War 2, which I know is sacrilegious to a lot of people. Apparently not as much as Winter Soldier being where that is on our list. But I mean, no offense, that 5 is super generous, and we know it's going to go down with all the movies that we have coming up. So hopefully maybe it stays in the top 10. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves here. Again, the show is brought to you by Fantastic. If you're watching on the youtube.com/the Geekiverse, you're going to see my shirt. I am wearing Fantastic #1. This is the shirt that launched the Fantastic brand. I've got Rocket, I've got Luke Skywalker, BB-8. It's the plan to save the galaxy, I believe, is what it was called. So really good stuff. This might be my favorite 26 shirt ever. And then shout out also, John and I have some spiffy beer glasses here, glass to mouth, right?
Glass to mouth. That's a company.
So John's, if you can see, he's got the iron gauntlet there.
This is my daily. Every episode I'm using this one, so people have probably seen this one before, but yours has a story behind it.
I've got Baby Groot and Baby Yoda. Baby Yoda was all the rage, is all the rage. But when Mandalorian came out originally, I was getting into glass to mouth glasses, thanks to John, and I emailed them and said, if you guys ever do a Baby Groot and Baby Yoda glass, I promise you I will buy it immediately. And I was like, come on, it'd be a big seller. So a week later, they emailed back and said, that's probably a great idea. Stand by. And a month later, it was on and they sent me the link. And I bought it right away. So really, really excited that they took my advice there for what it's worth. I hope it sold well. Why don't we talk about first impressions of Guardians Volume 2. JT, why don't we lead off with you today? Just kind of your 101 on the movie.
Initial thoughts, gotta easily throw it in my top 5. I know we do the ranking later, but and that's top 5 amongst all of them, not just what we've done so far. Comedic lines, Drax, Rocket, Groot, Baby Groot, but obviously, we got Quill. I mean, honestly, that's just where I'm at. easily top 5. It's rewatchable. It's something I could throw on every single day and watch it nonstop and still laugh and forget about half the things that happened. And there's some other things in there that were kind of tying into the future of the MCU too, which I like that. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
I always looked at the Guardians movies as a bit of an advancement when it came to the MCU in terms of getting it closer to where we got in Infinity War and Endgame, even if people didn't realize it. But that's how I kind of always associated it. John, 101 thoughts on Guardians Volume 2.
The Guardians universe is just where I want to be. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a Guardians movie or if it's just those group of people in space in the Avengers movies. I just can't get enough of this crew and the vibe. And anytime James Gunn is involved, you can clearly tell when he has influence when those characters are in like Endgame and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I just love living in the Guardians of the Galaxy universe. I remember every time I watch this movie, it blows me away at how well they deliver on a sequel, and there's so much awesome character development. Like Drax is so much funnier in this movie than he was in the first one, and he was great in the first one. We'll talk about all the our non-titular characters, but he's going to be up there for sure. It's just so Guardians 1 had all the comedy, all the cool moments and stuff like that. Guardians 2 made me cry, and it made me cry again today watching it for like the 5th or 6th time. Such a good job, incredible.
Father and son ring a bell there. I mean, my gosh, there's some crazy stuff going on there that I never thought I'd care about, and there I was. Del, bring it on home to me here. Give me the 101 on your thoughts of the movie.
Yeah, well, like I said a moment ago, James Gunn does an awesome job in terms of playing with your emotions and these different highs and different lows when it comes to the humor and like just the feelings that you feel. He makes you feel things, and a lot of it is joy. And I love the fact that it's completely preposterous that Kraglin knows the words to whatever song it was at the end. He's just singing it in the cockpit of the ship and everything.
Isn't
just ridiculous.
Wang Bang Shang Lang? Is that
yes,
the one?
Yes, exactly. He's just
he's sitting there singing that.
And so it's so great because he's taking all these things, whether it's music that you know, feelings that you know in terms of like the father-son relationship and friendship when there's a part of your life like when like especially like in your 20s when like your friends are your family for so many people, and it's so great, and I just love it to death. I think it's great movie making. I think it makes you feel things. It's completely rewatchable. Some of these MCU movies, as high as we have them ranked here, are not super rewatchable. Like I can't just pop in Winter Soldier and just watch it anytime, or even Civil War. It's for me, it's not as rewatchable. I mean, maybe it's because I like the comedy and it's really easy to pick up and watch Ant-Man. Just even parts of Ant-Man, I can watch that. Ragnarok, which we haven't done yet, is a very rewatchable movie. The Guardians movie is very rewatchable. So I think it's great. And one thing it's great about those two is while they exist within the MCU and there are references to stuff that goes on in the MCU, they can be self-contained. You can watch Volume 1, you can watch Volume 2, and I'm guessing you'll be able to watch Volume 3, although you wonder why the heck Thor is there if he ends up being in it or whatever. And they can be their own little franchise that kind of exists outside of the MCU, but also inside the MCU in a lot of those team-up movies. And that's not the case with stuff like Civil War or Winter Soldier, or I guess any of them besides those.
Right, that's a good point, because at this point, there's really no like direct tie with Guardians 1 and 2 to the MCU. I mean, this is just a set of phenomenal movies. I mean, they happen like months apart from each other. Well, in the MCU timeline, isn't this like near Iron Man 2 or something like that? The actual, it doesn't even matter. Like I'm saying, these are standalone films that they happen to tie in later, and of course there's those little seeds and things like the Infinity Stones and Thanos get included here, but these definitely stand alone.
I think that's a great point. I was going to piggyback off that. Some of the better, or some of my more favored MCU movies, to me, it's the ones that you can watch by themselves while knowing that they are a part of this greater universe and how they tie in. So for me, that's what really made me fall in love with Guardians 1, was that I was like, oh my gosh, this is like a Star Wars moment for me. First time I saw it, it just sticks with me. when I see Star Wars, I care about Han Solo and Princess Leia and Chewbacca, Luke Skywalker. Here I've got a little bit of a parallel there. It's like, oh my gosh, I love Star-Lord, but I also love Groot, and then Drax is killing me over here, but it doesn't happen without Gamora. Like there's so much of that going on in my mind that I love. I'll say this for my impressions on the movie. Last week I teased that my perception of this movie changed a little bit after it came out. So not unlike Last Jedi, which we'll talk about many weeks down the line, by the way. But here, when I saw Guardians 2, I had such high expectations because of everybody knows my love for Guardians of the Galaxy that when I saw it, I was like, yeah, it's a good movie, but it didn't sink in for me right away. It didn't hit home. And as time went on, I saw it more on par with how I saw the first Guardians, but in a different way. And Volume 2 to me is just exceptional. And it was very hard to bring back to kind of capture lightning in a bottle twice, I think. And I think they did that here. So we'll get into more of the specifics here. We're going to talk about we're going to watch the trailer at some point here. We're going to talk about our favorite moment of the movie. We're going to talk about a few other notes on it. But in a nutshell, I think it's an exceptional movie, and that's coming from a huge Guardians fan. Box office. So this movie comes out May 5th, 2017, and does pretty damn well. It grosses $863,756,051. No surprise, but as we've seen in recent weeks, we're seeing a little bit of a climb in the non-crossover movies, where these individual movies, if you call Guardians an individual movie, they're starting to climb up a little bit in terms of the ladder there. So no surprise here from my end. I don't know if anyone has a comment past that. Nothing out of the ordinary to me.
So I was looking into this as well. The only thing that really surprised me, not about the box office, was about the budget. This was actually a cheaper film to make than the first Guardians. And I don't know if it's because the CGI pipeline got easier to make, or they knew what they were doing. But I thought, like, for almost any movie in the MCU, this might have the best CGI. There's so much that's happening that's not real, obviously. Like, you're in space and there's all these different creatures, and sure, some of that's practical effects, but man, I'm never taken out of it. I'm just constantly blown away with how good the CGI looks. So I was very surprised to see that this movie came in at like $30 million less than the first Guardians.
That's kind of mind-blowing, because you almost think naturally it goes up with if nothing else, the salaries, right, that you're going to have to pay, because they've done that first movie. It's like Star Wars. Everyone gets in just here, and then you got to pay to play after that. Plus a lot of really big, I don't know if you want to say cameo, but smaller roles for some really, really big name actors and actresses that have popped up throughout both movies now. It's kind of amazing. I
think a lot of actors just want to take that opportunity to be in a Marvel movie. You don't always get to be Michael Douglas and be, Hank Pym, but your agent, if they said, hey, you got a shot at being in a Marvel movie, it's a small part, Ving Rhames will have you in there for about 11 seconds at the end, but you want to be in the Marvel movie? Yes. Okay, yes. If this is the only chance I'm going to get, I don't want to be 10 years from now going, I could have been in the MCU. So I think that there, as time has gone on, there's a little bit of leverage for those cameos. It's not unlike, Brad Pitt in Deadpool 2. They said he just came out for one day and filmed one quick thing, and that was it. Just to be a part of it,
Yeah, there's so much cred there, right? Like, you just got to check it off the list, even if you make that cameo, I think. I've always said I wanted to make either like a video or create an article for the Geekiverse on just all of these insane, huge names that have been across this, and just make it like a slideshow. And I think it would blow people's minds, even if you are an MCU fan.
Yeah, we're talking about this film here where Kurt Russell is one of the biggest names in the film. Are you kidding me? Like, they got Kurt Russell to play Ego? What?
Oh, and by the way, off to the side is Sylvester Stallone. Like, are you
just hanging out on the side? Like, what?
Pops in for 3.5 minutes of screen time. Just like, whatever, I'm here.
What?
Yeah.
It plays a little nice, meaningful role there. And then even you go back to the first Guardians, Glenn Close. I'm like, what is going on here? Like, it's kind of amazing that those movies are the ones that started to attract some of those, really A-list people.
I really hope John C. Reilly got off of Xandar, before Thanos had his way with it. I would love to have. I would love to have some more John C. Reilly.
Oh man, in Guardians 3, I would love that, man.
Yeah, he's a good fit for the franchise. Do you guys
cool?
Yeah.
Do you remember your first viewing of going to the theater and seeing this? I I do pretty vividly. I want to get mine out of the way here. Somehow I was on vacation when this movie came out, and I knew it was coming out May 5th, and went on a cruise with my wife and kind of a group of family friends, and I was like, you gotta be kidding me, I'm gonna be missing. Of course I could see it after, but as a Guardians fan, I have to be there opening night. Like, we talked about our opening nights for a lot of these other movies so far, and I'm really in opening night mode now. Like, I've got to be there for every MCU, every Star Wars, a lot of movies I normally wouldn't have cared about. It just became a thing. Ironically enough, I did not see this till like a week and a half after it came out, and I stayed spoiler free. I kind of just stayed off the internet, but that was it. Lauren and I went to see it. We went to see it with someone else who's formerly of the Geekiverse, and man, I was giddy like a little kid watching it, but it was worth the wait. Anyway, John, what did you talk about your first viewing with this?
Yes, so this was one of the ones where I think I mentioned in Civil War. That was where I was working at Apple and had all my nerdy friends, and we kind of really established our like midnight crew to go see these movies. This was the next one we saw after Civil War, because I don't think we saw Doctor Strange together. I think we were all kind of just like, yeah, we'll see that when it comes out. And I saw it with my fiance in opening weekend, but it wasn't like this. This was one where we got the first showing available. We were all there. We had a row and a half sold out of all of us, so like the hype was real. Like, Force Awakens level hype, like, you know, talking about every day at work, like super excited to go see it. And I remember watching it in theaters and being blown away and thinking like, man, they did it. Like, my first reaction was, it's better than the first one. I think they did it. And now I will say, so your immediate reaction was, no, it wasn't better than the first one. You were a little bit cooler on it. I was super, super high on it. And then like, I heard other people talking like you were, saying like, no, it wasn't as good as the first one. So I kept doubting myself. So I was like right in the middle. I would never really come out and say like, yeah, I think it was better than the first one. It wasn't until it came out on home video and I got to watch it a lot more. I'm like, nah, spoilers for later, but I think it's better than the first one. And I had that immediate reaction after seeing it.
John, so it's funny you say that. We kind of had the opposite mindset there. I feel like I almost didn't want to talk about it because I didn't want to show people that I was less excited. I wasn't sour on it, but I wasn't like through the roof. And most people, at least in my circle or the Geekiverse at the time in that iteration, would tell me like, you're crazy. It's a better movie. Like, it's just a better movie. And like I said, I've kind of almost got them on par. I'll tell you guys as we rank these at the end of the show. Stay tuned where I actually stand now. But I mean, it could almost be 1A, 1B for me.
I wonder if
JT.
I wonder if your first reaction was a little different because you didn't see it opening night and you didn't have that electricity and you're kind of just, you know, you had that little bit of a lull and maybe you had some resentment because you didn't get to see it right away. I don't know.
That's honestly a great point. That is very possible. I didn't think I felt that way, but maybe, I mean, opening night is like, it's almost like opening night of like the Saber season when they were actually decent, but you know, still, it's like you get there and you're kind of excited and everyone's there. It's a clean slate. Here it was like, oh gosh, I'm late to the party. That shouldn't affect it, but maybe it was. JT, what about you?
This is the only Marvel movie I went and said like, screw my crew, I'm watching it by myself. So
screw my
basically my brothers and my now wife couldn't watch it for whatever reason for X amount of weeks. I said, listen, I'm gonna watch it. I'll try to forget about it and we can go watch it again, but I'm going. So I went. Honestly, initial review, so I loved all the comedic stuff and everything. I was a little upset after, only because we're coming off, you know, Civil War, we're coming off Doctor Strange, and a lot of things that connect to the greater MCU, and this gave none of that. So yeah, was I spoiled in that sense that a lot of these other movies were giving us a lot of stuff that was leading up to what we knew was coming with the part 1 and part 2 of Endgame and Infinity War. And I shouldn't have really looked for that. So that's why I think when the rewatches came, I started to appreciate the movie itself more. But yeah, I was definitely a spoiled little Marvel brat, wanting more connections to Thanos and all that stuff. But
that's funny because I remember walking out and like having that hallway conversation with my group of friends, and like one of our points was like, man, this was a self-contained story, and I appreciated that because we had just come off the high of Civil War, and there was a lot of that stuff in Doctor Strange. The last scene of Doctor Strange, I think it's the post-credit scene, Thor's in it and stuff like that. So like we're all hyped on Marvel and the MCU, we're super excited, but like it was almost refreshing to walk out of this one and be like, all right, it was just the Guardians movie, and that was awesome. And I know there's stuff in this that's going to come back to it, and they didn't, you know, they didn't go crazy with it. But it's funny that you kind of had that other reaction to it.
AT, your crew did not see it because they were on vacation with me, apparently. So in talking about this being self-contained a little bit as opposed to a more broad scale, for me, tell me if you guys feel this way. I wasn't ever in panic mode, but this one started the clock ticking for me because this was the first movie where we were inside a year to go on the next Avengers movie, which became Infinity War. And at that point, I'm thinking at least how I thought things should have gone. And I was way wrong, by the way. But how in my head my perception was there should be some build up to what we're going to really see in Infinity War or the next Avengers movie. And I felt like, okay, this is going to be the one that starts to hit those dominoes a little bit. And then we had Spider-Man soon after that, and then Thor, and then Black Panther. And I was like, this is going to be it. And I didn't feel like we totally, obviously we didn't really get there. Did anyone else think about that at all in the lead up?
Yeah, I don't recall having that kind of expectation or disappointment.
So I definitely expected it because that's why I was a little upset after, I think. But I wanted that, just knowing what we had, like I said, just come off of. But I totally regretted my initial reaction once I kept watching it over and over again. So
good to hear. Del, first viewing for the movie. Do you recall it at all?
Yeah, I went to go see it with a group of friends the night it came out, and this was before I think the rest of my family had been really sucked into the MCU. So now whenever a movie comes out or a new episode drops on Disney Plus, like we all have to wait for each other, which is awesome that we share the experience. But sometimes someone's got a busy schedule, and you're like, "Come on, do you really have to go to softball? Do you really have to or whatever it is?" So, but this was one of the last ones I think I saw with just friends and everything. But you talk about how you didn't like it at first, dude. Mr. Blue Sky opens up. I'm like, I like this movie better than the first one, and I love the first one. This is amazing. They've already made a masterpiece. That whole opening scene. I cannot wait until the third movie comes out, only because these previous two movies have the soundtrack kicks off with such a great, just a great scene and song. I just think I love it. I love this movie from start to finish, and the music, the contemporary music. The difference between this and Star Wars is that you don't have, whomever like CCR or whatever 70s or 80s band you can imagine. There's no chance you're going to end up hearing a Bee Gees song in a Star Wars movie and just make it that much more relatable. So that's a whole different thing. But yeah, I loved it from the moment I saw it, which was like the day it came out. I love it.
Let's talk about that real quick. So Mr. Blue Sky kicks off the movie really for us. And I already love that song just naturally, but when it got incorporated into this, like I always associate it with Groot now. Like it is so perfect. That intro was such a perfect sequel intro to be like, hey, here's what we're doing as a team now. And I get goosebumps even thinking about it. And I feel like we should have a conversation after what John's about to say about Awesome Mix Volume 1 and 2.
No, it's related directly to that. I mentioned last week is we'll talk about how many times we think we've seen this film. I don't know, maybe in the 4 or 5 range, but I have seen the opening scene to this movie 30, 40 times. Like that's something I will put on like when I know I'm going to go to bed and I'm not going to be watching when I'm about to put it on. I just want something on for the background and put the sleep timer on. I would always just toss Guardians 2 on and just watch the first scene and then turn over on my phone. Like that was just a routine for me. I've seen that opening scene so many times. It's just so fun.
I feel like Del, we talked about this when we were at a restaurant, and like every other song just felt like it was from Awesome Mix. I was like, oh, there's no incidental. Like they know we're here.
That was great.
So I listened to both of those soundtracks. So every single road trip, every single time my wife and I go out of town, and then usually in July we my family goes to Sunset Bay, New York. We rent a cottage there for a week or two, and wouldn't you know it, it's right located on a street called Lakeshore Drive. So it's such a dad thing, and I embrace it fully, but like we don't get onto Lakeshore Drive until I have that song rolling with the piano in the beginning, and then we pull on. And I know Lauren can kind of almost roll her eyes at it, but I know she also loves it. So maybe Del, we also talked about this, and John and JT, I would have to imagine you agree. these soundtracks are a good mix of popular songs throughout the decades, nothing over the top, but also a good mix of songs that I absolutely never would have found other than hearing them in this movie.
No doubt. I would say that's most of this stuff for me, to be honest. I'm not a huge music guy in general, but I'm just like you, and every song on both awesome mix I absolutely adore, and I find myself just playing through that soundtrack all the time on road trips. Exactly the same thing.
Like, Brandy, You're a Fine Girl is constantly, if I hear a little bit of that song, it's in my head for a month. It's unbelievable. Del, were you telling me that James Gunn kind of shapes his stories a little bit with these songs, or?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, as a filmmaker, that's something you're not supposed to do, is write the songs into the script, because there's no guarantee that the studio is going to be able to get the rights for those songs. But I guess James Gunn knows that he's got Disney behind him, but he actually intentionally chooses every song that is in those movies to fit, whatever story he's trying to tell, whether it's the Brandy and the sailor and everything that Ego tells Peter about, or even like the Fleetwood Mac Break the Chain. Was that one playing at the restaurant? Was it the
it was the Chain for sure.
That might be the best use of any song in any at least Marvel movie. I won't get too hyperbolic here, but that's probably the best use of that. That's so great that it's such awesome placement, and the way what's going on in the background as it's happening. But yeah, so James Gunn does that. He actually writes the songs into the script because, like I said, when you have Disney behind you, you know that you can, if you say, I need this for the movie, they'll be like, okay, wherever the record studio is, like, all right, what do we got to do? What do we got? How much do you need for the song?
Yeah. Also, we need it for a Marvel movie. Oh, okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, your song will get heard.
Right.
Yeah.
To speak to that a little bit, I don't know the full story, so if someone's interested in what I'm about to say, you can look it up. But one of the key moments in the first Guardians movie, it was originally supposed to be another song, and I think it might be the opening when he's walking through and like kicking the rat and like doing the microphone and stuff like that. It was originally it was written for another song, but they didn't secure the rights yet, so they made a backup plan basically, and James Gunn ended up liking that more, and I'm sure they probably could have gotten the rights. They didn't hear it back yet, but I always thought that was fascinating that, like, because of the how hard it is to get rights, another song made it into it.
Yeah, I love that
whoever owns that first song, lesson learned. Like, you're gonna have a whole generation of people that never even heard that song suddenly fall in love with it.
Right.
I mean, so that's a song by Leon Redbone. That song comes on, everyone's singing it. Like, if I would have never heard it otherwise.
Because of Guardians, like, for sure, because of Guardians.
Exactly. It's just such a pop culture phenomenon to me. I love it so much. I cannot wait for Guardians 3, if for nothing else, to get that soundtrack and get it played. And oh man, I could talk about it all day. John, do we want to cue up the trailer?
Yeah, we can do that. Do you guys all have it up on your end? Get past those pesky YouTube ads. Cool.
Yes.
All right, good to go. Play it right now.
The fate of the universe lies on your shoulders. Now, whatever you do, don't push this button. Because that will set off the bomb immediately, and we'll all be dead. Now, repeat back what I just said.
I am Groot.
No! No, that's the button that will kill everyone. Try again.
I am Groot.
Mm-hmm.
I am Groot.
Uh-huh.
I am Groot.
No!
Showtime, a-holes!
Tape out there. I want to put some tape over the death button.
Nobody has any tape.
Not a single person has tape.
You have an atomic bomb in your bag. If anybody's gonna have tape, it's you.
I have to do everything.
You are wasting a lot of time.
That's a really bad sign.
If I touch someone, I can feel their feelings. You feel love.
Yeah, I guess, I feel a general unselfish love for just about everybody.
No, sexual love.
No, I don't.
For her.
No.
She just told everyone your deepest, darkest secret.
Dude, come on. I think you're overreacting a little bit.
You must be so embarrassed. Do me.
I will say I cheated a little bit because I usually try to go for the very first teaser that comes out for the film. And there was a teaser that was before this one that they showed at some con or something like that. But I skipped over that one and went with trailer number 1 instead of teaser 1 because what an iconic trailer. I remember watching that for the first time. I remember it being in syndication all over television, like ESPN, everything like that. Maybe the best trailer so far.
I'm going to say it right now. It is the best trailer in the entire MCU. I love it. I'm smiling the whole time. It captures the essence of the movie. It brought excitement to a new level. After everyone loved the first Guardians, it was like, these guys are back.
Right.
Man, it's so well done. It's so well done.
And how, like, the pedigree that James Gunn has, that those are two of probably the biggest jokes in the movie. And he just gave them to us in the trailer. But the movie is still so funny. Like, in all the lead up to those bits and stuff like that, you don't even care that you got them spoiled in the trailer. Like, so good.
Does anybody ever wonder why Rocket made a death button to begin with?
I love that. I just love that. Yeah, exactly. The death button.
It's not like he made it just in case. Like, he knew the exact scenario that it was going to be used in the next half hour.
Right.
Like, it's so great. It only serves the point of being able to make a joke, which is, I love it. I don't even care. It's great.
Yep. Oh yeah.
It's so good. I could watch it over and over again. Just Rocket going, no! Oh my gosh. Bradley Cooper, man. So, fun fact around that trailer, Fox on the Run is the song playing in the background. It's the only song from Awesome Mix Volume 2 not in the movie.
Interesting.
What?
I was going to ask. I don't remember that song being in the movie.
I was going to say,
perfect.
I buy that. Like, that makes a lot of sense because that trailer was so iconic and it was so, like, widely syndicated and it was all over the place. Like, it makes sense to me.
You know why it's so good? It's because I don't even know your name. So they're kind of talking about the Guardians, right? Like, I don't even know who you are. And then it's, you don't look the same as you looked before because they're a little bit different from what we saw them in the first movie. And then Fox on the Run is a little bit of like a joke to Rocket because no one can get what the name of him, either his name or that he's a raccoon, correct throughout the whole movie. So it's pretty damn awesome. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I was just gonna say that. Raboon.
It's so good. Oh my gosh, I love it so much. I honestly don't think there's a better trailer. If I'm thinking ahead in some of the other movies that we're gonna get, even though I may like the movies possibly better than this, just give me more. I will be there the second the Guardians 3 trailer hits.
Yeah, and especially if you put it through the filter of like, did it capture what the film was going to be? Like, obviously we already saw Guardians 1. We knew what Guardians 2 was going to be, but the trailer just absolutely nails it. And like they shed light on the fact that like Drax is going to be one of the funniest people in this movie, so get ready for it. And he absolutely kills it. My sweet lord, is it beautiful. Did anyone think like Drax was over the top at first? Or like, I know he's over the top, but when you saw Guardians 2, did you think that like it was like, I don't know. So this is where, real quick, where when I saw the movie, I wasn't like over the top for it. It's because I felt like they knew they had captured something special in the first one and they knew they had us. So like they almost were too over the top with stuff. They went all in.
My opinion has changed on it since, but at first I was like, all right, like calm down a little bit, Drax. You're trying too hard. I don't feel that way now. But like, did anyone else feel that or no? Probably just me.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. I mean, I've been there before where it's like, all right, this worked. You knew it worked, and now you're hitting us over the head with it. But I was all. Yeah. I guess for me, I didn't care enough about the way Drax was in Volume 1 to dislike this change or to be worried about them changing his character arc or the tone of his character. I was just all in on how funny he was. Yeah, I got you there. How many times have we seen this movie? Why don't we start with Dell? If you had a ballpark it with all the rewatches and in the theater and all that.
Probably close to 10. Probably close to 10. I think,
JT?
yeah, double digits.
Double digits for sure.
Mm-hmm.
What do you got, JT?
Over. I mean, it's got to be. You ask me this every week, and I feel like I give the same answer. So, COVID was a rough time, but a great time. We were all stuck home, and I was able to rewatch everything, and this is so rewatchable. So anything that's in my top 10, as far as MCU movies, I feel like I've watched 12 to 15 times. I mean, and what's a watch, right? So like throwing it on the side when you're playing games or whatever, right? But yeah, upwards of definitely double digits, just like Dell for sure.
I've got to be in the same boat. I think 15's easy for me, which kind of sounds insane, especially for one that only came out. This is 4 years ago now. It's a movie that if we're kind of continuing to count, you had it on when you're going to sleep, or you had it on in the background doing other things, or I sat down and watched it glued to the television for 2 hours, 20 minutes. All of it, I say you're easily at 15. But again, took me time to warm up to it a little bit. John, what do you think?
Yeah, I say this every week, but I'm pretty deliberate with when I rewatch the MCU, just because it's so special to me that I don't want to dilute it at all. And obviously, there's exceptions to that, but yeah, I mean, Guardians 2 is one of those ones that I said it earlier in this episode, I've seen that opening sequence easily 30, 40 times. Like I can't even remember how many times I just tossed that on just because I'm like, all right, I want to see Groot dance. I love the song. Then I'm going to bed, and I just hop into Disney Plus or pop in one of the only discs I have in my house and let that ride. But yeah, I mean, to completion, probably 4 or 5 times. I mean, once in the theaters, could have been a second time. I don't know. I'd have to look back at my old ticket stubs, but yeah, I don't really rewatch movies unless I'm doing something like this, or I'm I guess COVID is the other factor in that.
Before we get to favorite non-title character, so we want to go around and just give our favorite non-title character from Guardians Volume 2. We do want to remind everyone listening and watching that the show is presented by Fantastic, our friends over at 26 Shirts. What they do, 26 Shirts as a company, exists to help people. So especially in the Western New York community, which is, of course, near and dear to our hearts, they produce shirts. Sometimes they're sports themed, sometimes they're pop culture themed, like you can see here. John, by the way, this is 2 weeks in a row without wearing. What's going on here?
I found this new love of $6 colorful Target shirts, and I don't want to talk about it.
That's 6 shirts, not 26 shirts. So anyway, 26 Shirts exists to help, and I'm going to kind of speak for Del Reid here. They sell these shirts, and a good portion of every sale goes to a specific family or charity in need, or an individual in need. And they've raised over $1.1 million to date, including, if I'm not mistaken, close to $400,000 in the last year, which is kind of bonkers to think that you guys have given that much money directly to people that really need it. And it's such a beautiful, beautiful concept, and I can't imagine the amount of lives you've touched with it. But Del, since we have you on the show, and I always talk about it for you, anything we should know about 26 Shirts or Fantastic that we haven't been talking about, or anything that you want to tell the community that supports you guys?
Man, you do a great job every week of covering all the bases. I mean, like we're a part of the Western New York community. We want to support the Western New York community. That's why we exist. We don't exist just to make really cool T-shirts. Hopefully people think that about them. We exist to help people. And when it comes to helping people, the only thing I know how to do well, and that's even arguable, I guess, is come up with corny T-shirt ideas, right? So that's it. That's all I got. So I want to help it. So that's how I do it. Or we do it, I should say, because it's a team effort at 26 Shirts. And, we get a lot of credit, but really it's every person that buys a shirt, that believes in what we're doing, that shares, a link to a shirt on social media. Everybody's a part of this, and we're just, honored to be able to play the role we do in all of it. But it's a fun way to spend your life helping people, whether it's through T-shirts or anything else. I recommend to anybody who's listening, like, find what you love and find a way to turn it into something that can help people. Maybe it'll end up being your vocation, maybe it won't, but you spend your time investing in other people, you always get something back.
Speak for you, as I always tend to do on the show, but I think you were put on earth to do that. that very thing to help people, and you do it very well. Before I knew Del, and ironically we met because of our mutual love of Star Wars, but I followed Del on Twitter for a number of years and been a huge fan of whatever 26 Shirts did, and always looked to you guys as role models. And it's super awesome, not just to know you, but to have you as a friend and on this show. So we appreciate you a lot. I also got to visit the office, which is really cool to see the behind the scenes stuff for 26 Shirts. But you guys recently opened up a bit of a storefront as well.
Yeah, now we get to, as a company that's primarily e-commerce, now we get to meet our customers face to face, the ones that want to, at least, locate us in the Tri-Main Center and visit us. It's a new dynamic for us, and it's more of like a nice little add-on. The business isn't really dependent upon that, but it's a nice thing to be able to do and, invite people, because people were finding us anyways.
I'm sure.
Through the return, the return address on the labels. People were like coming to the office, and that we used to have in the same building. But and they said, "I came to check you out." I'm like, "Sorry, it's kind of disappointing. It's like a really like cluttered office, and there's some shelves here, and it's kind of cool, I guess." But now we're in a new space that's a lot more deliberately set up in terms of the office space and the shipping, and now we have the little store area. So it's something that we're actually beginning to invite people to come hang out with us and check out what we got going on.
Well, with most people I know, especially fans of 26 Shirts, including myself, it is always a discussion on how many shirts you have from you guys. And typically the bottom line of my closet is just all you guys. Last thing quick before we move on to favorite non-title character here on the MCU Reviewed for Guardians Volume 2. Del, you guys, you're partnering up with a former Geekiverse partner here to produce what sounds like a pretty awesome beverage, if you want to give a quick spiel for that as well.
Yeah, no, we're super excited to work with Community Beer Works. We're launching, they're launching a beer called Good Intentions that we kind of have, as much as you can as a t-shirt company, collaborate with a beer company. We kind of collaborated with them on, but we got to give them some ideas in terms of what we thought it should taste like and what kind of beer we want it to be. And we got to design the label and stuff like that. And so it's just really exciting. And I never thought that that's a direction we'd go in, but CBW is great in terms of their desire to give back to the community is much in line with with ours. So I couldn't think of a better local brewery to work with on something like this. So we're really excited about it. I'm gonna buy probably way too much and never drink it and just have it sit in the closet. And 10 years from now, my wife is gonna say, "What are you gonna do with all this beer you never drink?" And I'm like, "I don't know, but it's got our logo on it. It's cool." So I don't know, but we're excited. It'll be cool. And for every 4-pack or 6-pack that you buy, a portion is going to get donated to Feed More, which is the food bank here in Western New York. So right in line with, our two businesses, what we believe in. It's going to give back and hopefully taste good. I'm sure it will.
God bless you guys. Yeah, my beer review would be, this beer tastes good, and that's about it. And
it is
Brendan,
called Good Intentions, so I mean.
It makes sense. Brendan from CBW, if you're watching, stop whatever you're doing. So let's talk non-title character. How do we want to define this? Truly someone who's not in the Guardians? Like, I don't know. Or do we want to just pick our favorite Guardian in this movie? I don't know. You want to do that, John?
Yeah, because I want to take Drax.
You're on mute.
Oh. Hold on.
Oh.
It's that thing again where the audience heard me the whole time. I have a hotkey set up that's supposed to mute me on Discord and on OBS, but for some reason Discord wants to not listen. So the audience heard me talking to you, and you didn't hear me.
So I was just interrupting. Oh, what a jerk! Sorry.
Yeah, right. I want to do that one because I just want to take Drax because I just love him in this movie so much. I think that's like it's tough. I mean. Yeah, titular character. I think the clear one is Star-Lord. I think we could almost consider the rest of the Guardians non-titular characters if we wanted to go that route. But for me, Drax is just like
spicy.
So good. It's just so funny. His character is so good. Batista does an awesome job of just. I didn't know he had those chops, man. I used to be a WWE fan back in the day, not so much anymore. But like I was watching when Batista was kind of like up there, and never thought I'd see him in a Marvel movie, a superhero movie, but also being like one of the key comedic reliefs in that film. He just had me cracking up this whole movie.
Dude, it's a great pick, and I like how you jumped out front there. Very well played.
Right.
JT, if you don't mind, I think we go to our guest first. Okay, Del, favorite character from this movie specifically.
It's so hard. I guess it would be a tie between Yondu and Nebula, because at least when you say non-titular, I think of non-Guardians of the Galaxy, and they both almost Yondu became a Guardian, and we know where Nebula ends up eventually. But Nebula's tough, man. Like when he basically like taps into her power to take care of all of the sovereign that are surrounding the ship, like she's great. I mean, she's she's so tough. She, and but also like she has that comedic part, like with the yarrow root and everything, which is like one of the best little through lines in that first third of the movie. It's so great, yeah. So I really enjoyed her character. I mean, obviously, I can sit here and espouse love for every single character in the movie. So I'm guessing that JT wasn't going to bring up Nebula, so I'll give her some love.
That's a good one, dude. I don't know that we would have gotten there, but I mean, obviously she's so integral as we get into the next two Avengers movies. Mm-hmm. And what I do like about this one is this really plants the seed into specifically why Thanos is out of his mind crazy when it comes to just terrible, terrible things that he does. Like, killing is just terrible in general, but now we're getting into specifics. Like he tortured her because essentially Gamora beat her up, right? Like just terrible, terrible things. And that really laid some nice groundwork for down the line, in addition to making Nebula an even more prominent character.
Right,
John.
We mentioned that these films stand alone, and there's not too much that's directly tying back to the MCU. But like, we almost take for granted the fact that all of Thanos' backstory is planted in these two films. I mean, Thanos isn't in another Marvel movie until Infinity War, right? Like, all of his backstory comes from the Guardians films, and I don't think any of us really realized that was happening until we see Thanos in the opening of Infinity War, and we have some stuff to appreciate already.
Yeah, I always felt like the Guardians movies had these undertones that connected there because I associated Thanos with Guardians because that's where we see him really. But I thought overall, despite being a standalone movie, Volume 2 does a good job laying the groundwork. JT, favorite character?
All right, I think every week I have to say something crazy and over the top, so I'm going with this one. Michael Rooker, Yondu.
Yeah, that's where I was going.
And speaking with Del, I think Del, you were leaning there, but let me take it. So I appreciate that.
For it.
He, my opinion, was the best performance in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, aside from the comedy from Drax. Performance-wise, hands down the best performance. I have a few things. Sorry, Joe, I don't want to go too long on it, but
you take your time because I never shut up.
Easily a top 2 MCU death for me, with Killmonger being number 1. The Ravager funeral literally made me tear up, hands down. Obviously, his arc was very short in terms of both movies, in terms of screen time, if you want to call it. But what an arc, right? Like just seeing why he did the things he did in Volume 2, why he took Peter, why Peter kind of saw him as a father at the end of it, right? Hands down. I mean, Rooker just blew it out the park, and I loved everything about the character. So
that's almost what's so impressive to me is like how short that arc was, and how almost abrupt like our turn on him was, and how quickly we're sold on him being a good guy, and how hard his death still hit. Like I don't know if there's another example of that. It's such a quick turnaround time for me flipping the script on a character and then also caring so much about his death. Like that was, I don't know how.
I think what made it great is he kind of was at least in the eyes of Quill and the Guardians, like he was the good guy the whole time. He just didn't know why he did the things he did.
Yep.
That all come together. It made it easier, I guess, for Gunn and the crew to make it happen. But
it's just seeds that were planted and great through lines that I didn't expect to care about.
Right.
How much better does it make his performance in Guardians 1 when you go back? Like, because a little bit of his mindset and that he's really not a bad guy. He's a vigilante, right? He's riding the line. He does some bad things, but in his heart, he's a good guy, which is not always one and the same. But man, there's so many emotional moments. JT, I think you nailed it. All of that, I would totally agree with it. It was probably where I was going for listing my favorite character for this movie. So, by the way, Michael Rooker was coming to Nickel City 2020. Unfortunately, that got put on the back burner from COVID. But we were gonna get to say hi and do an intro for him, and oh, my gosh, that one hurts. But I'm optimistic for next year. So I'm gonna say, since Yondu was my guy, Ego. I love Kurt Russell in this role. Man, he's so likable, but you shouldn't like him. He plays it so perfectly. Something wrong is happening. That he is twisted almost to a degree that like a Thanos is. Like he's done some really, really bad stuff. But man, Kurt Russell does such a good job of making you care about that character and then also sympathizing with Peter. Because whether you've been there yourself where you didn't have a loved one to lean on or a parent or a sibling, or maybe it's a friend you lost touch with, it's hard not to sympathize and get behind how Star-Lord feels there. To have that, I finally got my relationship with my dad, but he's really not a good guy. Like, all of it, I could just go on and on and on, but I really, really, truly love that role. And when I heard that he was going to be in the film and the rumor was coming out that he was going to be, before it was official that he was Star-Lord's dad, oh man, hype was to a new level for me because I had a feeling it was going to work, and it really did. He did a good job. Let's go on to we're gonna rank these in a bit. We're gonna stay tuned as we rank them every week. Very excited as always to see where Guardians gets on our official list of the MCU rankings to date. But for now, one last thing before we get there, we're gonna talk about quote unquote that moment. What is that moment of the movie? In my opinion, there's so many to choose from. I know JT mentioned some really good ones. Del mentioned some sobering ones when we're talking about our characters here. For me, I do want to go first on this one since I got passed over almost twice on Yondu. The moment when Ego tells Peter what he did to Peter's mom and Peter snaps. Oh boy, that's intense, and that is some wonderful acting by Chris Pratt there.
And like snap almost doesn't even do it justice. There is no transition. It is immediate. It's so impressive. Like I watch that scene every time and I'm like, oh my God, there is no transition between I'm listening to you and I want you dead. It's
not a thought. It's just instantaneous. You see the visual with his eyes, right? He's under that trance, so to speak, and then he hears that and he looks down and it's over. And I love it. And I love how quickly too, by the way, that everything just flips with Ego. Because now for the rest of the movie, it becomes a fight for their lives, let alone the galaxy, to get away and kind of take this guy out. It's quick. Like the panic level is through the roof. What a transition, because that could have been really bad. Just like Yondu, like that could have been a really misled thing. Like, why would we care about Yondu thinking that he's like Peter's dad figure? But they nailed it. They also nailed this. So that's my moment. Who wants to go next? Who's got a moment in mind?
Take it.
Okay.
And I'm kind of upset about it because the trailer had it, but it was the tape scene,
so funny.
the bomb scene, whatever you want to call it. So I love the back and forth when they're trying to find tape, and then Drax asked, "Are you looking for scotch or something like that, like scotch tape?" And he's like, "Yeah," and he's like, "Why'd you ask me? Like, why'd you ask me about scotch?"
Yeah, that would work.
I love that. And then he goes to Rocket and he's like, Rocket's like, "Did you ask Nebula?" He goes, "Yeah." He's like, "You sure?" He goes, "Well, she was standing right there next to like that." That just felt
I knew you
so. Joe, way in the beginning, you talked about like just how the I'm sorry, it was Dell in terms of the espionage and stuff. How the MCU, it seems like they're trying to ground the MCU a little bit in terms of like making it relative to our lives, right? The normal everyday life, as much as they can with a superhero movie. That in itself, I was dying. Like when I first watched it, when I watched it again, I still die now. I was dying when I was watching the trailer. Like favorite scene, hands down. I just like the back and forth between them is just hilarious. So,
dude, it's so good.
It's so good. I just can't stop laughing about it. It's so
What's
good.
great is they don't skimp on it, and they right. That's what makes it great is the little bit of awkwardness there because Gamora, you hear him literally go around to everyone except for Nebula. You have some tape. Like you've been there with your siblings, right? Like you asked Nebula, right? And they're like, no. Well, they were standing right there. Like that's 100% a thing. It's so great that they get on each other's nerves like that. And
so
Rocket
good.
being mad that nobody has a piece of tape is just awesome. Bradley Cooper, I think, as Rocket, by the way, might have been my other pick if I had another pick for one of our characters. But Del, so many moments to choose from. Why don't we go to you next? A moment, a quote.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this is my number one, but this is the one it made me laugh tonight. And for as many times as I've seen the movie, I forgot about this specific part. And I was watching the movie alone. And normally when I'm watching something, like I don't laugh out loud. Like normally, for some reason, I have to be around people to really get for the laugh to come out because you're sharing that humor or whatever. Like I'll smirk or like whatever chuckle. But like there's the one scene towards the end when all the Guardians except for Groot come together and it's doing that sweeping camera move just like Joss Whedon did in the first Avengers movie, and you see all the Guardians. And like for some reason that part completely like was out of my mind. I had forgotten that. Like this is really cool. They're mimicking Avengers, and it's like it's like this is their own team, and bonk, all of a sudden that just gets in the head.
It gets a level,
alone
man.
in the house. And I bust out laughing like so loud, and then Drax is like, Mantis, look out! They didn't even need that part. I mean, I guess they had to put a bow on it, but like just the fact that she gets like this nasty in the head, everything's like epic. Like, yeah, we're part of Marvel too. We have an awesome team too. Bonk, and then it's like, don't forget, this is a comedy. So I don't know if that's the best moment in the movie, but that's the one that made me laugh tonight.
Dude, I'm the same way where I feel like I'm laughing on the inside maybe, or just not really getting there. But on this recent watch through, I belted out a laugh when Drax delivers that line because I always forget about it, and he just you almost feel like you wonder if that was like scripted. Like their humor and their chemistry is so good.
Right.
Man, just look out! Oh my gosh, it's so good.
Yeah.
It was so epic too, right? Because it's like, here's our new Guardians. We had the original 5, and now we've got everyone in a circle, and it just happens. Yeah,
there's no wrong answer for title or title character or moment. Like all of them, everything. This is why it's one of the. Well, we'll figure out. But
I do love another moment that comes to mind when Rocket's trying to fix the ship, but he knows the Ravagers are coming, and he's got the kind of like the microphone set up, and he's humming Southern Nights, and then just kind of destroys them. Like he just takes them down with a bunch of crazy weapons, and then eventually we see him like punch the one guy like crazy. All of it was so funny, and it was nice to kind of see him in action without like shooting anybody. But that was a pretty fun sequence because Southern Nights is playing in the background. It's goofy. Why, John? We got to get to you still. I'm sorry.
We talked to him. We talked about all. I mean everything.
Okay.
I think that if I were to have to pick one that we didn't talk about already in terms of just that little segment there, I would probably go with the Ravager funeral. But I just laughed so much that I want to talk about something funny again. So it's like, yeah. There's just so much to choose from. I almost would just like cop out and double down on my theme for the show and just say that the fact that Drax is so funny is my moment for this movie because I just love everything he does, and like the moment from the trailer where he's laughing at Peter's emotions, like haha, that must be so embarrassing. I just love his over the top obvious comedy. So that that's my pick. Drax is my moment of the movie. He's my non-titular character and he's my moment. Drax.
Dude, him making the face when he thought that, or when he was like picturing himself with Mantis is just priceless. Yeah. How he's like gagging. What are you doing?
In that first scene when he just calls her like repulsive or whatever, it's just so funny. It's so dry and it's so good. And like I'm with both of you guys. Like, if I'm watching a film by myself, I'm not usually like laugh out loud, like busting out, but like multiple times today when I was watching that, Drax got me. So he's the winner.
Or even
I'm a pet and I'm ugly.
The very end of the movie, that is a serious emotional moment, and we think it's so touching immediately that Drax says that Mantis is beautiful, but when he gets back, he goes, on the inside.
Dude,
it's another little...
And that's one of those ones in the theater, I literally mouthed the rest of that because I knew it was coming, but it still hits, like it was set up so well that we all knew it was coming, but it still was perfect.
Yeah, delivery is key when it comes to that. I want to get to my portion of the show where I just talk about some bullet points and observations. We talked about a lot of them, so I'm going to skip through them. But feel free to interrupt because I'm just like a train that goes when I get to these notes. If you've got
Joe, before you get to that, I'm very disappointed you did not try to pepper in all the songs in this episode like you did with the first one. Very upset about that.
Are you being sarcastic now?
I'm being very serious because what are we at? What's the number at?
I have hit 13 of the 14 songs.
I've been watching you write the whole time. I'm like, I
know.
missed
It's obvious. I never have a pen and paper. Literally every time I'd say something, I'd be like,
just wanted to take my moment to call it out.
all right. I didn't know if you didn't pick up on it or if you were looking for it or not, but if you guys watched or listened to the first episode of us X amount of episodes back, I didn't tell anybody, and I didn't tell anyone this time, but I have, the list of Awesome Mix Volume 2 songs here, and I tried to work them in. Some were pretty obvious. These were harder than the last one, but I feel good. I thought I was going to have to save a lot of them for the end. Like if Guardians got to a certain number, I'd say, boom, we broke the chain, or we got to number 1 somehow. Wham, bam, shang-a-lag. I had some backups there.
I was almost wondering if you were talking about the songs as referencing them, because I'm like, how is he going to work that in there?
Yeah, I wrote them down in order, so we'll see if we want to do a little social media giveaway for anyone who's crazy enough to list them out.
We'll see.
I think Elida
I
did
did
it
catch
last
you
time.
say, come a little bit closer. I was like, I forgot that you were doing that before, trying to work those song names in. So.
Yeah.
You did hear it? You were saying?
Yeah, I heard you say it.
Yes, when I said I wanted to smack Rashawn. Sorry, Rashawn, I love you. But that was my way in. Come a little closer, Rashawn. It's like, I'm such a loser. I was thinking about this today. I'm like, how am I going to start the show? It's a Guardians Inferno in here. All right. So, John, I'm happy that I did not disappoint you. Show notes. So, opening sequence. Crazy that we already talked about how much we love it. But I talked about last week, we got a little bit of that Doctor Strange color palette, which is basically like just a rainbow's worth of left to right spectrum. We got a lot of that right off the get-go, and that was like an underlying theme for me. Anything to speak to on the visuals when it comes to that?
The only thing I will say, so we talked a lot about HDR last week and how that really matters with the color. I always forget how much a 4K Blu-ray disc really is an improvement over streaming over like Disney Plus or Apple or something like that. That stuff looks great, and yes, it's 4K, but like there's artifacting that I don't realize is happening when I'm watching something. Then I pop in something like this and like, man, it's such a upgrade in quality. So much so that I after watching this, I went on like eBay because I knew it was probably sold out, and I wanted to look for the full Infinity Saga in 4K. Yep, that's not affordable. That is not affordable.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. The disc really makes the difference in some of these because you're obviously not streaming, right? So
it's huge.
Yes. Also in that sequence with Mr. Blue Sky, of course, James Gunn coming back to dance as Groot, as he has done from time to time. I love everything that points out to Groot, not just being baby Groot, but really kind of being a baby. Spitting out the bug in the beginning. I love him waving at Gamora and her yelling at him, but then such like a parent would do, saying hi. Like, it's so relatable.
It's so great. It was so great.
So stopping dancing when Drax looks, like, that's a wonderful thing. I don't. Is this a thing? Like he does that because Drax hates dancing, right? Yes.
I don't know. I'm not sure if there's like a solid through line there. That's the vibe I got from it, but it funny.
Lauren pointed it out to me one time. She read it online, whether it's true or not. But like she read that he stops dancing as he did in the end of Guardians 1 when he's like a plant, because not to be like a funny guy and pretend like he's not moving, but because Drax hates dancing. And at one point in the movie, he mentions his wife that there could be the most melodic tune on, and she would not even be tapping her toe. Like, he hates dancing. So kind of
makes
funny.
Sense actually. It makes sense.
Yes. I love how they also like pass him along at the end of the movie and kind of care for him on their shoulders as he's falling asleep. And then I gotta ask you guys, I don't know if there's a comparison or not, but pick one: OG Groot, Baby Groot, or Teen Groot.
That's tough.
Did we do this in the last one, or am I thinking of a different podcast?
Oh no, we definitely talked about this. I wouldn't be surprised, but it's been literally a year, so I think we can refresh a little bit. Before I give an answer, I just think it's so cool that we get a completely different character in Groot. I mean, in whatever your answer is, it's still like as valuable as a character to the story and to the comedic relief. They're very, very different characters. The Groot from the first movie was super funny and had its own little tone, but the cuteness with Baby Groot is just like next level. So yeah, I don't know. I think I go Baby Groot over the other two for sure.
I think Baby Groot's the easy answer, but it doesn't mean it's the wrong answer. JT.
Baby Groot, hands down.
Del.
Too funny.
I like Teen Groot. I don't know. Like, I think I said Baby Groot last time, but I'm going with Teen Groot now. I mean, without him, Thor doesn't have a weapon. He doesn't, he has his own. I love how he's playing Defender through the entire Infinity War movie.
Yeah.
It's so great. And yeah, so I'll go with Teen Groot just to change up. All the iterations are great, and I'm assuming in the next Guardians we're probably gonna have like grown up Groot again. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how different the grown up Groot, the new Groot, because James Gunn confirmed it's a different character. This is a different, this isn't just Groot respawn. This is another Groot. Yep. So it'd be interesting to see if they, if this is another adult Groot and how different their personalities are.
I think I ultimately would go with Baby Groot, but I like Teen Groot because of the sacrifice where chops his arm off to help. I love that they tie that into Thor's weapon, and then that I am gonna say it, like, I'm not waiting. That is my moment in Infinity War when Thor arrives with Rocket and Groot. Like,
easily.
Every time I talk about it, no matter how many times I see that movie, I get goosebumps. I'm pretty confident. Man, it usually takes a lot for me to get there, but I'm pretty confident I teared up in the theaters seeing that, just out of excitement. Like, oh my gosh, it was beautiful.
All right, let's take
I remember the theater erupting when that happened. Like, the theater that it erupted. It was amazing.
Let's take note to use that so Josiah can't take it for his moment, just because he
already called it. It's good. We're good.
I'm gonna go first, and he can't take it.
Line cutter, you. I love that annulary batteries are harbulary batteries to Drax.
Do you remember the shirt we did with Fantastic that said harbulary batteries and it looked like the Interstate Batteries logo? And
no, I don't remember that.
That's nothing like what I just said, or something like that.
I missed it.
I think we sold like 5. I'm like,
was it
T-shirt gold? How are you?
Was it like green?
It was green. Yeah.
Oh.
And
I'm so sorry. I would have been 6 and probably 7.
Yeah.
I missed it. I suck. That's hysterical.
I love that joke. I feel like there's so much time between, like, when it was first mentioned and the payoff that I just did not expect him to bring that joke back, man. Like, it killed me.
When Drax says, even later on, that he goes, that's what I said, or whatever he says, harbulary batteries, and Quill goes, no, it's not. It's so good.
The banter between the characters in this movie is so real.
Perfect.
Like, no, it's not. Or when Drax jumps into the beast's mouth and she's trying to explain to him what Drax was thinking, he's like, that doesn't make any sense. He interrupts her and she's like, I know. She's like,
the skepticness is the same from the inside as it is the outside. It's so good.
Like, just to be dumb, the first time I saw that movie, I was like, oh, I guess that makes sense. And then 2 minutes later, they're like, oh yeah, I'm dumb. So I was like,
I love their panic when they see Drax doing that, because they're like, he is done, and it just ends up working out. And I love that he's laughing at the end and thinks that he took the beast down. It's just so good.
Groot throws a rock at him. It's so great.
And that is the opening, like, that's the tone setter. So good.
Mm-hmm.
We already talked about it, the yarrow fruit not being ripe. It is really great how that happens in such a short period. And like, Nebula wants to eat it, but Drax kicks it away. Like, it's a sin. It's not ripe. And then, of course, when she shows up later, takes the bite, spits it out, and says, it's not ripe, in that low voice. It's so good. We say this line, I tell you guys this from time to time. Like, there's a line that we just repeat in my house between Lauren and I. And fairly constantly, I'll say the Rocket line, oh no, you're supposed to use a sarcastic voice. Now I look foolish. It's great that he has no idea what sarcasm is from that standpoint. Oh my gosh, we use it all the time. This is little. I never noticed this. So when Drax is about to like go out of the ship, as they're in that chase sequence going through like essentially the asteroid belt before they make the jumps, it says emergency spacesuits, and underneath they wrote, or for fun.
Yeah, I saw that.
Never picked up on that before. The names that Rocket is called throughout the movie, Puppy, Fox, Rat, Raboon, and of course, Trash Panda.
Trash Panda.
Which
It's so much worse.
That was
so
my
much
daughter's fantasy football team last year. Was the Trash Pandas? I was so proud of her.
Awesome.
Oh gosh.
I'm gonna definitely take that. I think so. If I'm not mistaken, Del, that was the discount code for this shirt.
It probably was. It probably was.
Yes.
It's such a great line. I'm sure that's what I did.
I'm pretty confident it was. We already covered this, but I just wrote Sylvester Stallone. Are you kidding me? Like, that's craziness to me. Drax sitting around the fire, legitimately thinking that Yondu is Star-Lord's dad.
Look exactly the
and
same.
the cut to Rocket, he says, like, out of nowhere, he's like, "One is blue," and the camera just stays on him, looking at him like with this like complete just confusion. He's like, "What is blue?" And the camera just stays there. It's so great. It's so great.
Oh my god.
That whole sequence, as many are throughout the movie, it's just spot on. Him telling obviously Nebula or not Nebula, Mantis to pet Rocket, and then him almost biting her, and just Drax thinks it's a hilarious joke. Gamora referring to David Hasselhoff as Zardu Hasselfrat. I love that Star-Lord constantly references pop culture and music and sitcoms, and she finally snaps and just yells at him and says, "I don't know what Cheers is."
It's so. I mean, he was only on Earth for like 12 years of his life. It's just so great that like that's all he clings to is the stuff that was relevant while he was there. It's so funny.
Earth up to like 1987 or whatever it was, whatever year was that he got taken. It's so great.
Zardu Hasselfrat. So Nebula talks about like her plan to jump onto Thanos' ship. Not like a groundbreaking thing, but I love that little tie-in because that's really what happened, right? She was doing that in Infinity War and got caught. They captured her. So this is stupid, but I think it's funny because I used to make fun of Jeff Pavlak for a number of things, but one of which was like I used to call him GIF. The guy, one of the Ravagers, he's this is not narrowing it down by the way, but he's got a beard and then like the thicker goggles. He goes, "Okay." His name is Jeff, but it's spelled G-E-F.
Yeah,
I love it. I think
so great.
It's so stupid, but I love it. Not like a G-E-O-F-F. G-E-F.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quarter, that's only like 1/3.
25.
It's so good. And when I mean, we should talk about Taserface quickly. When he's talking and he's going along and they're not quite there, I love when Jeff goes, "Okay, like we can kind of get there." It's a name Shakespeare.
I will say that Taserface is the one joke that like didn't let it just got stretched a little too far for me. They brought it back like 4 or 5 times. I'm like, all right, I get it. It's not that funny of a name for it to like have this through line. And again, it's comedy, it's subjective. Not everything's gonna hit for everybody, but that's the one thing that I'm like, all right.
That probably played into my first impression a little bit. I was like, all right, let's give this a break.
Right.
I do love how they cap Taserface off and he's talking to the one girl.
Yeah.
With like the golden skin. I don't remember their race.
Right.
But
Sovereign.
Yeah, Sovereign.
The high priestess.
Which
or something
she
like
can't hold in her laughter. The more I watch this movie, the more I think that's funny.
Right.
He just gives up at that point. He's like, Groot is has a funny moment when he's trying to bring stuff back to Yondu and Rocket, but when he brings the finger, like their reaction is just great. Like that's like, oh gosh, where did he get that from?
Let's never talk about this again.
Yes. So Del mentioned Nebula is his favorite character in the movie here. I love the duel between Gamora and Nebula. It's so raw to me, and it's like it's intense. It's sister versus sister. There's a lot of emotional baggage there, and I just love how that whole sequence plays out.
It's so ridiculous when Gamora has the gun from the ship like on her shoulder. It's so ridiculous, but I'm here for it. I don't care.
Same. It's supposed to be ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Yondu and Rocket's exchange where Yondu says basically that they're the same person. He goes, "You're me." Oh man. All the time that's another thing we say in this house. I have a 2.5-year-old daughter, and we were hoping she would get her mother's characteristic in that my wife sleeps a lot. I do not, which causes issues from time to time. So if she gets like frustrated over things or she just doesn't sleep or whatever it is, we both look at me and like, no, it's my fault. So I look at her and I go, "You're me." It's a thing.
Your daughter's like, I don't get the reference.
Great part is she does what I would do and she laughs anyway. Like, I know you have no idea what this is, but you're laughing to make me feel good. Thank you very much.
Smart kid, she'll go far.
Yes. I don't know. Like, this is again kind of a small thing, but I thought it was funny. Like, not funny comedically, but ironic maybe. We talk about how Thanos wants to destroy half the universe, and that's his shtick. Ego wants to like remake all of it. Like, that's pretty crazy.
It's pretty big.
Obviously, John, I don't know why, especially as we get further away from Infinity War and Endgame, I think about it, but like, they had another really, really powerful psychopath on their hands here.
They did, and we know he's a Celestial, and those are going to come into play in the MCU soon. But like, this was a pretty big event. We talk about this being like a more isolated story, and it's kind of just the Guardians involved and stuff like that. But like, he wanted to take over the universe. It's a pretty big scale, and I've seen the criticism before is like, why have we never heard about this monstrous big blue blob that almost tried to consume the Earth in the MCU at all? All of a sudden this Dairy Queen starts to just consume all of Missouri. Like no one ever talked about it. But whatever.
That's coming in Civil War too. Don't worry.
There we go.
I'm gonna headcanon that and say that Doctor Strange did something with the Time Stone and switched that back or something.
Love it. Perfect.
Yes, good call. We do see the one individual later, like in one of the post-credit scenes, I think, or mid-credit scene. He's got like I don't even know what it is. The ability to do what Doctor Strange does. He's got that orange aura. Oh, more to follow.
Okay.
We already talked about it. I lose it every time the Groot detonator thing happens. What maybe my favorite line throughout is "Welcome to the frickin' Guardians of the Galaxy." Only he didn't use frickin'. Hysterical.
Love it.
Ego. So when Ego dies, fades to dust, and he looks very reminiscent of what we see in just a few movies down the road in Infinity War. It's very similar dynamic how he just fades to dust. And never noticed it till, of course, you watched Infinity War. So if you go back and see that, it's interesting how they play that out ahead of time. Okay. I'm going to go out on a ledge here and say I am the only one of the four of us who owned a Zune.
Incorrect. Had a Zune.
What? I never would have guessed.
So if you didn't bring it up, I was going to. Now, I didn't buy a Zune as my primary music player because I wanted a Zune. I just love technology, and I bought one years later just to have. I have it somewhere in this room, actually. I just have like tons of iPods, stuff like that.
Did you buy it after the movie came out?
No. Oh, way before. No, way before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It doesn't count then.
No. We've got probably almost a 10-year period between when the Zune died and when this movie came out. Yeah. So it was somewhere in there. I mean, the Zune died the day it came out, unfortunately. But I had
Stop
a Zune.
it right now.
I have a Zune. Very dead, but I have it.
Dude, I loved my Zune, and I was like, I was not naive, but I was recently I got a Samsung phone, and last night at Thin Man, we're all like busting my chops over it. It's fun. I was thinking the same thing like back in the day on Zune. I just felt like I was trolling people, but I legitimately enjoyed my Zune. And not a huge deal, but I like how it integrated into Xbox. So we're talking probably Xbox 360 when that was a thing, short-lived as it was. But I was in a band, pop punk band in Buffalo called Letter Set, and our guitarist was adamant that Zune was just the end-all be-all, and that's kind of why I picked one up. I have full faith that John is going to find this soon right now. Okay, I love so much that is what is given to Peter, and I hope that they do incorporate that into Guardians 3, because he had Awesome Mix Volume 1, the tape, cassette, and he got the cassette Volume 2, and that is what we saw playing early on in this movie. I hope it becomes a thing in the next one.
And I love the line that this is what everybody on Earth is listening to right now. It's so good, because like the Zune never took off. I didn't find my Zune. I have a couple of iPods, but I didn't find my Zune.
It's okay.
Isn't it interesting though how the Guardians are so advanced in terms technology, but he's using a cassette tape still in his Zune.
Right.
I just love it. It makes it so much better. I love it.
It does. Two last things here. James Gunn Sr., James Gunn's dad, cameos in this movie. I couldn't tell you where, but I read his name in the credits. He is quote unquote weird old guy.
Oh.
But I love the theme. You know, obviously we don't know James Gunn personally, but he seems to have a fondness for his father and had a good relationship. He has since passed away since this movie came out. But I love that he's got his father in there, and maybe that plays a little bit into what we saw with whether it was Yondu and Star-Lord, or even to a degree Yondu's influence on Rocket. But kind of a sweet moment, and obviously his brother Sean Gunn is a staple throughout these two movies for me, and he's another guy that was coming to Nickel City Con 2020. But we'll talk about it next year. I like the family element. I think that's always a nice thing. Last thing,
James Gunn's father on Google image search. He's one of the guys taking pictures at the Dairy Queen.
Yeah, when that thing is happening in Missouri.
Got it.
Yeah.
Oh wow, okay.
He's that weird old guy.
Yep, weird old guy. Nailed it.
Wow.
Taking a picture of the blue stuff. It's good stuff. Last thing is, did anybody question when you saw this? I'm sure we all did. Jeff Goldblum as the Grandmaster dancing during the credits.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
Love it. A lot of people were like, "Why is he there?" But at that point, the Ragnarok trailer had come out. I think.
Yeah.
If you didn't see it, you were like, "Why is he
I must
there?"
have missed it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's after Flashlight. No, it's during Flashlight. And he's on the right-hand side. It's just one still. Like, everyone's got a few stills. He's dancing there. It's a nice little tie-in to what we're going to see down the road, I think. Or at least with the Thor and Guardians team up. But yeah, love it. Good. Anything I missed? I think we talked a lot here. Anything that I missed that you wanted to bring up, a favorite moment? John, right to you.
The one thing that we didn't talk about was almost my moment it's almost probably because it's like one of the most quoted things now, so maybe it's kind of played to death, but the Mary Poppins line was huge. That was a big pop at the theater opening night, man. That was like one of the entire theater erupted with that "I'm Mary Poppins, y'all" line. Like that, we haven't talked about it yet.
Is he cool?
Is he cool? Yeah. Oh, Joe dropped. Of course you did. We're gonna. Oh wait. Is he back that quickly? He's back.
Yes.
All right, we're not going to cut. We're just going to let it in. That's an impressive recovery time for you. So we're not even going to cut. We're just going to leave that in.
I don't want to say, but I'm getting good at it.
Right. Rejoining Discord calls.
So I got most of that. Yeah, like that was so popular in like my circles for a while. Del,
Right.
did you guys do a shirt with that or no?
No, and we should have.
Never too late, man. Nostalgia is where it's at.
Never too late.
Yeah, maybe when Guardians 3 rolls around.
Yeah,
we'll see. But yeah. Anything else that we wanted to talk about here before we get to the official rankings?
Nothing here.
All right.
Start, man.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, arguably our favorite part of the show, we're gonna rank where Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 lands on our list here at the Geekiverse of the MCU movies to date.
Yep.
John, I'm going to pass it over to you.
So I've got the list up. We'll do a quick recap for the audio listeners just to kind of give a rundown where we're at. So we're really halfway through this thing now. We're past that point. Right now we have number 1, Civil War. Number 2, Guardians of the Galaxy. Number 3, The Avengers. Number 4, Avengers Age of Ultron. Number 5, Winter Soldier. Number 6, Iron Man. Number 7, Iron Man 3. Number 8, Ant-Man. Number 9, Doctor Strange. Number 10, Iron Man 2. Number 11, Captain America, the First Avenger. Number 12, we've got Thor. 13, Thor the Dark World. Coming in at number 24, The Incredible Hulk. And that is where things lie.
That list is exactly right.
Exactly right?
There's no arguing. Oh, I have to be truthful to the list. Obviously I would have it a little different, but the list is the list.
It is. Yeah. I get you there. This is the list. But where do we start? Where do we put? I think. All right. Just based on all of our reactions, I think we can easily start with it ahead of Iron Man 3, below Iron Man. And obviously that's probably a little low. Let's just start there. We're all there, right? Okay. We all think this is better than Iron Man 3, right?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Who thinks
Rashawn?
it's better than?
Just kidding.
You don't count. Got recast. Who thinks it's better than Iron Man, the first one?
Me.
Me
as well. Me. Unanimous. Winter Soldier.
Me
as well.
Me as well.
Okay.
Ho! No for JT.
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you have to take into account, like, maybe you don't think it's better than Winter Soldier, but maybe you think it's better than the next ones you want it higher on the list. So that's where it gets tricky, man.
This is going to get difficult because up until last week, it was like a straight line for me. Like it all lined up. And now I'm like picking and choosing. Do I want to sacrifice this one to get it here or vice versa? So,
sure.
Yeah, it's going to get hairy.
All right. What about, is it better than Age of Ultron?
Yes.
The Avengers.
Yes.
All right. So I was going to predict this is where it was going to get troublesome for Dell, but yes.
Dell said quick yes. That's another unanimous yes as well for me.
Well, I already know where this is on my ranking, so it's just a matter of
just seeing how it plays out.
This is where we're at number 3.
It's currently between Guardians and Avengers.
As I've teased throughout, these movies are touching right now, right? Like I've had them as 1A, 1B kind of thing. Now you're going to truly find out my feelings on how far I swung from my initial impression on it. So John,
who thinks it's better than Guardians, the original,
yes.
Volume 1? John says yes. Del, what do you think?
Absolutely.
Del says yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Me too. Unanimous as well. Look at that. Oh my! All the suspense for nothing.
Yeah, it took me a few months to get it there, which is not a lot in the scheme of things, I know.
Sure.
But eventually, my eyes were open to a lot of these moments we've talked about tonight and how I appreciate them and view them. And I've talked about throughout the MCU how I really enjoy specific humor from the actors and actresses that. It's really them, whether it was written or not. It's all them. There's so much of that in this movie.
Right.
It's better than Guardians 1, and it's saying a lot for me.
All right. Well, there's one left who thinks that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is better than Captain America: Civil War. John says no. John says no.
I say yes.
Del says yes. Del says yes. Joe?
The rewatchability, the independence that it can have from so much of the MCU, the balance of humor and family and love and more humor is just great.
Del, you are a good man. My answer is I am Groot, which is yes.
You didn't have to swear. You got to talk about your language.
God, it's a family show.
Did you hear? Yes, it is number 1 for me.
So I don't know how this works because I would say no. I'm gonna say that I keep Civil War at 1, but we're split. So what do we do? Do we throw it to a vote?
With all due respect, because even when Del was on the last shows, we would only have the 3 votes count when Rashawn was there. Not that I want to say it's any less important, but just if we want to stick consistently, that's what we did. And of course, I want Del's vote to count because I need the help. But just my 2 cents. I'm good with whatever we do.
That makes sense. You're right. I forgot we didn't. Yeah, I forgot we talked with Del. And we asked him what he thought, but I think we did keep the original 3
Del's
cast
like
members.
a consultant.
I'm here for decoration. I serve merely ornamental purposes.
Del is the pretty face of the podcast. See. It was so funny when we're setting up tonight. I'm telling Lauren, listen, I gotta sell this thing. I gotta get these guys there. So I didn't do a great job, but Del did a good job of getting, at least we're on the same level. But I can't be sad that that's second. Like, still love Civil War,
right?
But I would have both Guardians movies above Civil War.
I know you.
Let's do this then. Let's do this. Sell me, even though my vote is, like I said, purely exhibitional. Sell me on why Civil War is better than Guardians 2.
To me,
Or
it's
the
just,
audience. Explain to the audience why you're doing this.
right. Yeah. So
Head over to youtube.com/thegeekiverse and watch the last episode.
right.
No,
Right. No. Civil
Tune in
War.
to find out.
Go ahead, John.
To me, Civil War was it was the perfect tie-in of everything I loved about the MCU. And while Guardians is incredible and is very special, it's its own thing, which is fine. It is the MCU, but Guardians is what it is. When I think about the MCU, Civil War is always one of those experiences where it's like, man, you took all of the characters, you divided them, you told me very compelling stories, just a tease of what we're going to get with Endgame and Infinity War and how you're able to split these characters up, have so much involved, but still be able to make me care about all of them. I mean, yeah, I think about the MCU, I think about Iron Man, I think about Cap, and I think about those top tier characters, and I just put Guardians 2 above a bunch of those characters, right? But to have them all together, to have the introduction of Spider-Man, again, John mentioned it in joking, but go listen to our episode about Civil War because we're gushing about it. I just think it's, to this point, the strongest MCU movie, and it just truly defines what we all hype the MCU up to be. It's all of these different storylines, all of these different characters, and you just get a taste of all of that in Civil War. So it's tough for me to put anything above it yet. That's all I'll say.
So, just to piggyback off of that a little bit, I just loved how Civil War. They could have, it could have felt forced, right? They're introducing a lot of characters at the same time. It didn't feel that way. So watching it, I didn't feel almost DC-ish, where they're just throwing every character out and say, "Hey, we're Justice League now. Just watch it." You know,
right.
It could have felt that way with Civil War. It didn't. It mixed well, the story, the arc, all of it. It just made sense. So it's just you can't. I love Volume 2, and I think I've started loving more every time I watch it, and I can laugh at it like I said all the time. But as far as MCU, just like John said, Civil War's got to stay there for now.
Right.
For
So
now. We'll see.
to me, when the MCU is at its absolute best, and again, there's a lot of great that doesn't maybe constitute as the best, right? Only one thing can be the best. But when it's at its best, it's when you're firing on all cylinders. And I think Civil War had it all. I think it had all those characters. I think it had some of the comedic beats. I mean, we gushed about Ant-Man in that movie. Tom Holland as Spider-Man was super funny as well. Clearly not as funny as something like a Guardians movie, obviously. But I just think that it's firing on all cylinders there, and that it's tough for me to put a movie like Guardians, either of them, because obviously I didn't vote Guardians 1 above Civil War either, to put that above, like Del mentioned earlier, Avengers 2.5, and, you know, as we've already decided, better than Avengers 1 and 2. So
it's scientific.
No, that's good points. I guess it's tough because they're so different. Like, maybe I was giving too much credence to the fact that Guardians is standalone and not giving enough credence to the fact that Civil War is tying in all of these characters in a way that isn't cluttered and in a way that affects the movies going forward. So maybe it's 6 to 1, half dozen the other. So,
for sure.
you know, I can get on board with this.
There's so many different filters to look at this and to rank these things. Like we talked about it last week, and I'm almost contradicting myself, but it's like, all right, which movie would I rather watch right now? On any given day, you ask me that question, the answer is probably going to be Guardians 2, just because I don't have to get myself there, right? I don't have to think about, you know, storylines. I don't have to, you know, be worrying about a cinematic universe and all that kind of stuff. I'd almost always answer Guardians 2 unless I'm in the middle of an MCU rewatch and I get to Civil War and I'm just all the way, you know, 10. It's a roller coaster ride that just never stops. So, like you said,
it has consequences. It has real world consequences in it, and I get it.
I can get behind all of that. That's why, I'm fine. I'm fine with it. The only difference I would have is I would have Guardians 2, Guardians 1, and Civil War. Like, I can't get mad about any of that. And I don't want... Man, do I want to? Oh, man.
I was just going to say it's not worth using a snap over because we're all kind of in the same spot, but is that where you're going with this?
So what do we got left? We have both Avengers movies. We got Black Panther. We've got Captain Marvel. We've got
both
2 Spider-Man movies.
And Ragnarok.
Still 10 more movies, and they get better and better and better.
I'm gonna wait because
I would save your snap, but that's your snap. You do it.
I'm not mad enough about that, and I can snap that. I wouldn't be surprised if those two are still touching. However, that could drastically change in the coming weeks here. Man, interesting. Sweet. John, give us the new rundown for those listening.
So the new rundown is still Cap, Civil War, number 1. Number 2, Guardians, Volume 2. Number 3, Guardians, Volume 1. Number 4, The Avengers. Number 5, Age of Ultron. Number 6, Winter Soldier. Number 7, Iron Man.
What was that number 6 one again?
Number 6, Winter Soldier. A little high, but if you ask me. Number 7, Iron Man. Number 8, Iron Man 3. Number 9, Ant-Man. 10, Doctor Strange. 11, Iron Man 2. 12, Captain America, the First Avenger. 13, Thor. 14, Thor, the Dark World. Number 24, The Incredible Hulk.
I'm surprised he hasn't grouped Dark World to 23 just yet. Like, I like that you hang on and it's only the Hulk.
Like something's gonna outdo.
Right.
You know,
I think
we haven't seen Black Widow yet, guys.
Started to rewatch
right out.
Dark World because obviously I wasn't there for when you guys did the review for it, and I'm 10 minutes and I just can't keep going. So
I do love that Endgame paid homage to it. I do like that. I mean,
no doubt. And yes,
pulls it up.
There's merit there.
Yeah, it's like it still matters, guys. Y'all hate it, but it matters.
We're gonna bring it into the greatest selling movie ever. You suck on that. It's so good, yeah.
The part in Endgame was the best part of Dark World.
Fair enough.
Hands down.
Oh man, I love it. They did good.
I'm happy.
They put a great spin on that. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. You got our new official MCU reviewed rankings here at the Geekiverse. Very excited about that top 5 specifically, and I'm excited to see where we go after this. As we've said, we've got a lot of heavy hitters coming up down the road. I threw on social media at one point, pre-Infinity War, that I said at that point Ragnarok was a top 3 MCU movie, and people jumped down my throat for it, and I can't wait to see where we get it on this list. And I'm going to leave it there because we've got a lot to talk about.
Right? Isn't
Spider-Man No, it's not next.
Right.
Spider-Man's next. So yeah, I'm going to go watch Guardians Volume 2, I think tonight again, because I have to, because we've talked about so many moments here. But next week, ladies and gentlemen, get watching Spider-Man Homecoming. We are almost there. Such a huge entry point, a milestone moment in the MCU. We finally get a feature-length Spider-Man solo film, kind of solo. We get a little bit of Iron Man in there. Can't wait to revisit that one. That's always such a fun movie. It's a laid-back movie, but Tom Holland crushes it. So watch that if you want to stay on par with us as we're going through the Geekiverse's the MCU reviewed as presented by Fantastic. Let's wrap things up. Either closing thoughts on Guardians or what we can look forward to in terms of Spider-Man. John,
I'm very worried about next week. Just based on things that people have said, I'm just very worried about next week. All I'm gonna say.
Right? What is that?
Stay tuned. Just stay tuned. I'm just worried about next week.
I'm genuinely curious.
Can I piggyback off that? You should be. Because I know what you're thinking, and it's what I'm thinking, and just be nervous. Because you're not going to get it where you want to get it. Hopefully.
I couldn't care less if this sits at 24 or 5. Like, to me, that's fine.
I'm
couldn't care less.
Next week.
Good. Maybe I should be saying this. You should be. JT, anything to wrap up or transition to next week? Minus the worry that we're creating here.
Definitely excited to continue to review, but hey, we get Loki tomorrow, guys.
Yes!
I forgot about that.
So
beautiful.
I'm making this is my last thing, promise. I'm making a pact. And Del, I was DMing you about theories for all of WandaVision. I'm done with theories. I'm glad the director came out and said there's no Mephisto and there's no this, there's no that. I am going in and just enjoying it and not being upset about the end of it. That's it. No more theories. Probably talk about them every now and then, but
it's
besides that.
It's tough with the Disney Plus shows because you have a week to speculate. Like we don't,
right?
These MCU.
So they kind of love that. They love that people do that. I mean, 100%.
It's great. It's awesome. But like that is that's tough when you start to hop on the forums and the Facebook pages and there's seeds that are planted and maybe they're going to pay off in future films. But like we're hoping they pay off next week, stuff like that. So. Yeah, I level those expectations, and you can really enjoy what they're doing out there.
Yeah, I know the director did say that there is going to be a lot of MCU, or I guess future MCU impact in Loki. I don't know what that's going to be, obviously, but maybe some what if kind of correlation. So we'll see.
That.
So we've got we believe either a full length film or a series coming every month for the rest of the year.
Say it
Good
again.
stuff. We have just kidding. Del, we'll give final thoughts today, thinking about Spider-Man, and then if you wouldn't mind, one last plug for the wonderful folks, including yourself at 26 Shirts and Fantastic.
Yeah. James Gunn, if you're listening, thank you for making such awesome films. Disney, if you're listening, thank you for bringing James Gunn back for Guardians 3. I can't imagine it without his filmmaking prowess. And then in terms of the next week, unfortunately, I won't be able to join. Maybe that's good. I think I talk too much sometimes on these things. I get so excited, but I'm really looking forward to getting angry at what you guys do next week. So that'll be fun. And I cannot wait for Loki to drop tomorrow. I feel like if I ever had a band, I would want my first album to be burdened with glorious purpose.
Oh,
so,
I love that quote so much.
So I love that that's the Loki we're getting in this series, because it was great to see that arc, him saying Odin's son in Endgame. That was great. And really acknowledging that, he's part of this family. But now we get to forego all of that character arc and go back to him being a jerk. From the Avengers, so I'm looking forward to what they have in store with this show.
Yeah, I think it's. I've said it all the time. I can't believe we're getting a series with Tom Hiddleston focused on Loki. We are so lucky. No pun intended there. It's going to be awesome. Del, for 26 Shirts.
That part too. Yeah, thanks. Check out 26shirts.com. Check out fantastic.com. We love just making designs that are fun and celebrate things that hopefully all of us love and do good at the same time. So I appreciate you guys giving the shout out every week, and continue to check it out. We're constantly putting out new things, and if anybody ever has a cool idea for a shirt design, do not be shy. I guarantee whatever you send me is not the worst suggestion I've heard. So by all means, anybody listening, feel free to share.
Yeah, I second that, ladies and gentlemen. Make a suggestion if you want it to happen. Incredible stuff. We're lucky to be partnered up with Fantastic and 26 Shirts. Always love having you on, Del. Hope to have more of you in the future. As you said to me, you will move heaven and earth to get on some of those Avengers ones. So we're gonna hold you to it. Those are gonna be mega episodes. Like, I can't imagine them. I know we kind of target anywhere from like 45 minutes, maybe a little over an hour. Those are going to go 2 hours. Like, it's how it's going to go. Carve out your night.
I'm taking a day off work. Yeah, I'm taking a day off work. I'm prepping. I'm going to be, it's going to be intense.
Yeah, I'm here for it. And, we got to get ready for it. So we'd love to have you, the Geekiverse community, along for the ride. Whether you're checking out content at thegeekiverse.com on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, listening to the podcast version of this episode wherever you download podcasts, or visiting youtube.com/thegeekiverse to watch the video version and all our crazy facial expressions as we're disagreeing with things or agreeing with things and having things validated. Case in point, John, it's just a beautiful, beautiful thing. Or what great t-shirts we're wearing. We appreciate the follow, the like, the comment on the video. Tell us what your rankings are to date. Last thought, guys, as I mentioned, I got through my list of all the awesome volume mix songs. It wasn't as fun as the first one when John realized, wait, Josiah, are you just saying all the song titles? Yes, John, I am. But it was still satisfying nonetheless. So give me your thoughts on all of it. For Del, for John, for JT, I'm Josiah. Thanks again for tuning into this week's episode of the MCU Reviewed. We'll catch you soon. Have a wonderful night.